Hey, welcome Nishant. Welcome Alka.
Hello, hello.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
All right, we are live. Welcome everyone. It's Monday morning and we are working on the book Invocation of Presence. And I'll start sharing my screen. We are on page 58 of chapter 9, Remembering to Invoke Presence.
Oh. Sorry.
Real
Yeah,
life
Per-
unfolding.
Perfect way to start today's meeting.
I'm really sorry. I
The
forgot I
Monday
was doing.
blues. Alka, why don't you get us started?
Thank you for being real for 1 minute.
Yes, you can start any way you like.
Sure.
Um,
I'll start with yes, David.
I think we finished on the paragraph that starts with this can be used.
This can be used.
Why don't we
This
start
can
with
even be
one?
used later.
Yeah, but let's start with
This
one
one?
even more effective. Okay. Go ahead, Alka. Even more effective. Yeah.
Even more effective, G replied, would be to use the negative force to feed the invocation. A slightly more sophisticated invocation would serve this purpose, such as, I wish this, referring to the negative force, including such negative forces as the sensations of happiness, ecstasy, nostalgia, pleasure, and religion, to be used to feed the invocation of the presence of my presence into the present. This can never this can even be used later when you begin to invoke much greater presences than your own. But this is not the real question. Anyone can learn the secrets of invocation, which are not very inaccessible even in ordinary life. The real question is, how do you remember to self invoke? I set the intention to remember, he replied. You set the intention to remember to invoke yourself, meaning, I suppose, that at some time before your invocations begin for the day, you decide to remember to invoke yourself into the present. And using this method, how often do you successfully remember to invoke your presence? G asked. I tend to remember to invoke my presence more often when I am in a positive state than from a negative state, she replied. But I haven't any real means of remembering to self invoke. The invocation of presence in a positive state is practically useless, G commented, because it neither feeds the invocation nor does it provide any definite indication of a successful invocation, which is to say, the washing away of a negative state in the presence of presence. And I pass.
Can we repeat the last paragraph?
Yeah. The invocation of presence in a positive state is practically useless, G commented, because it neither feeds the invocation nor does it provide any definite indication of a successful invocation, which is to say, the washing away of a negative state in the presence of presence.
Go ahead, Bhavani. What's your question? I can almost hear it.
Just trying to understand it. It's so intense here.
So take your time. Anybody have any help here?
So
Um,
what are the meaning by positive state here? Uh, that's the question because they talked about momentum, right? That to build the momentum is easy.
Right.
So should
This
we not
paragraph
build?
is this paragraph in my mind is almost on the verge of contradictory. Okay. Because if it's a positive negative state, you're just mechanical, then you're mechanical. But maybe he's just drawing attention to the fact that um, the negative states have more energy for the invocation. I'm not sure exactly, but
um, is it that he's saying that when you're in a positive state, you're already closer to presence, while the real work of presence is to wash away negativity, which is absent in a positive space?
But in the
In
first
go ahead, Bhavani.
in the first sentence, he's saying the invocation of presence in a positive state is practically useless. So then that contradicts what you're saying, Alka.
Actually, it doesn't, Bhavani. This is what I'm saying, that there is no point of invoking presence in the positive state because it's already there.
No,
The
but it's
presence is already there.
providing any definite indication of a successful invocation. Because when you're positive, you could be in a state of just mechanical, like, for example, you're extremely,
mm,
and now you're trying to invoke a state of presence, but the happiness is so immense that the invocation you cannot success. You could just be aware that you're happy, but you cannot invoke yourself because the state of happiness is so mechanical and exhilarating that it may not invoke your state of presence. Does that is that
Um, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think he's talking here about positivity and not so much necessarily about happiness. So positivity can have various shades. So a positivity is an indicator of successful invocation of presence. This is how I am interpreting it. That
Give me an example. Let's take an example. What would be a positive state?
when I'm at harmony with everybody around me, for example, I'm in office and I'm doing some amazing work as a team. We are thriving, and everything is nobody's criticizing each other, nobody is plotting against anyone, nobody is back bitching against anyone. You're in a positive harmonious space.
Okay.
That is absence of negativity, and the positivity is a result of in presence basically.
so? Then, in that state, what you're saying that everything is in harmony, it's
Mhm.
even harder to invocate your presence because it's something you like. You want to enjoy it for a longer time. So then, does it? So is it something that you like and you want to keep it going, or is it really invocating your presence? Is it successfully creating a state of presence in you?
Yes, Bhavini, I think that's a resultant. That positivity is a resultant of many such efforts. And once it is invoked, then it is useless to try to invoke it because probably it's already there. And you might not be able to see the effect of invocation because the the degree of proportionate change is not going to be too much.
But this is again like what the earlier example that G gave about the person who wanted to be in the kitchen.
Hmm.
You know, he
Right.
specifically talks about it, that, you know, just because you like doing it, it's not going to take you there, you know, or do you think it's going to carry you there? So then the question remains that, do you think that
So,
harmony is going to get you in a state of invocation, in a successful invocation?
if you're asking if continuation of harmony is equivalent to momentum of a personal habit which puts us in comfort, I feel there might be a difference in these two situations, but that's a kind of a comfort zone that you're looking for, while positivity is being positive even when there is no comfort.
But then again, like the example is of the harmony, but the example is not of someone constantly contradicting you or constantly going against you. So the example, so my question is that when we think of a positive state, we are thinking of harmony, which is something which is very likable to the ego, to the state of ego where there's no friction, where everything is going, you know, nicely, and, you know, there's no contradiction or friction. So then the question
That's
that, would that get you to a state of successful invocation?
what I think he's saying here is that it's useless to try to invoke when you're already positive. And the emphasis here is not whether you should, uh, why should you not invoke when you're present, but the emphasis is more on you should try in testing times. So when you are dark and you're shrouded in darkness, that's when the effort would really count. I think the emphasis is on that point here.
Yeah, oh, I missed the useless part. So the invocation of presence in a positive state is practically useless because it
Yeah.
neither feeds the but again, now he's saying that it's neither feeding the invocation, nor does it provide any definite indication of a successful invocation. So it's not going to take you towards invocation. It's useless because you might just enjoy it, and you might think that just being in a certain happy state will make you feel that, oh, you're in a state of presence. It could be like a mirage, you know, where it makes you feel just because there's harmony. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep
Yeah.
going. This is good.
So it might so it does not provide any definite indication of the successful invocation, which is to say the washing
Yeah.
of a negative state in the presence of presence. So it's not an indication, because when you're happy, you get the state of harmony, which makes you feel that this is an amazing state. And now when you're actually washing away a negative state in the presence of presence, so how should I put it?
You're almost, I
Yeah, I
think,
think
yeah,
state
you're
is
almost
not the
there.
same as emotion,
Say it
because
again.
the previously also you had mentioned that, you know, even happiness, joy, all this is negative emotion. So we are talking, I think we are talking mixing state with emotion. That's what I think Bernie is asking.
Yeah. So
It,
positivity and
yeah,
harmony, I think, are states, while happiness is an associated emotion.
yeah.
Happiness probably comes from identification uh,
Hmm.
with the outcome of the state.
So can we try to, because what I'm still not able to understand that, which is to say the washing away. So I'm trying to relate that with the top part, and I'm
Yeah.
to understand that I've still not gotten it yet.
Ah.
Okay. The simplest way I can, like the simplest example that comes to my mind is that when your clothes are already clean, you will not use the bleach. And we can look at invocation of presence, for lack of a better example, as a brightening bleach, right? So you're just wasting your bleach when the clothes are already white, and you'll not be able to notice how they changed from all blotty and spotty to white because you used it at the wrong time. If you had used it when the clothes were really bad and stained, then you would be able to notice the difference.
That's a beautiful example. Thank you, Alka. But I'm still, yeah.
No, it's not the distinctions here are difficult, okay?
Mm,
And we don't know the mood that was happening when this talk was going on either, right?
exactly.
You know, so but in so picture yourself at a, let's say you're having a dinner party with friends and you worked very hard. You were working on your presence while you're making the meal. Now you present the meal to everybody and everybody's having a really good time. And if you self reflect at that point, you might be happy, you might be satisfied, but just self reflect. Now, you might not get out of, and let's just say that there's a certain kind of ego going on, right? Whatever it might be.
Mm,
Boy, I did a great job, you know, or whatever it is, which is fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, just notice it, but there's kind of no energy there to power you to the next level of presence, right? There's not a, like, let's just say that you're angry that somebody didn't like your asparagus. Well, at that moment, there's a lot more energy, isn't there?
that's beautifully put.
You
Thank you.
know,
That's wonderful.
maybe that's the discernment that he's telling us here. Just just a guess. You know, we don't know, we can't really interpret what he's saying, but we can interpret the words as they work for us. Correct?
Yeah, maybe in the next para, I think he's,
Go for it.
in addition, be very cautious when referring to positive states. The majority of states considered positive in ordinary life are really negative because they depend upon some organic centrum of attention, and also because the emotion is really a sensation, group of sensations, or a definite or indefinite series of sensations. The times I have remembered most to invoke presence are times I feel very asleep, Dee said. Then I feel heaviness overwhelming me. So, can we try to, uh, should I just continue or should we go back to that para?
Uh, it, it's up to you. Whatever you.
Because I still haven't understood the, which is to say, the washing away of a negative state in the presence of presence. So the negative state is not just it's not just anger or anything. It could also be a as so whatever we're referring to positive, it may not be, it could be a state, a negative state too. So the washing of
Yes.
negative state in the presence of presence. So anything, whatever we're trying to invoke the presence in a positive state, is practically useless because it neither feeds the invocation nor does it provide any definite indication of a successful invocation, which is to say, the washing away of a negative state. Oh, I get it. So basically, any kind of a state that you are in, be it happiness, be it harmony, be it this, be it that, whatever the state is, if you cannot be aware of it, like, and wash away even the knowing of that will be the presence of presence. So basically, where you become in a state of blank, right? So
Well, yeah, but it's a state. It's not being affected by the external, but it doesn't mean that you aren't vibrant and alive.
yes, so you're aware of it, but basically the state of whatever it is all washed away. So then you're just there
That's right.
to be in that state. Hmm.
Let's say, Bhavani, you go to that big sphere you have there in Las Vegas.
Mhm. Yeah, I've still not been there.
And you go there for, $150 a ticket conference or concert,
Mm.
and you're just really enjoying the music. And if you're dependent on the external activating you, that is a negative state. Even if it's how cool this is, right? How exciting.
Mm.
But if you can be there and kind of penetrate the beauty of the offering of the music, then you have a different form of enjoyment. You're there differently.
Mm.
So that's just how I'm distinguishing this. It's a touchy thing. It's delicate, but aren't we there already? This is chapter 9 of a very technical book, and well, it should start to get subtle, right? Nikhil, just nod your head. I know you can't say anything. You know, he knows what technical is. So there's subtlety and technical here. But we're ready for that, aren't we?
Mm.
Yeah.
We can also take positive as presence and negative state as absence. Absence of presence and
Or
positive
sleep.
state is
Yeah. Or sleep.
presence
Yeah.
of, yeah.
Yeah, that's like another interesting and nice distinction, Nishant, that there's we can look at it that way. It's just the thing, when Nishant gets elected as the Surgeon of the Year and he's receiving his award in front of the audience, I hope he sits there and he goes, I thank you. My ego thanks you for this.
Yeah.
Because it'll work. I mean, the fact that it works does not mean that you aren't growing. It's a mechanicality that works. The issue is our identification with it is our downfall.
Yeah,
So,
because as you said in this example, when I'm receiving this award, is it going to the surgeon in me or it's going to the essence?
right.
Mm.
And, and if you've been there, you know that if you can sit in a certain place of objectivity and that you are simply charged with more, right? There's the humility of, gosh, since I am now have been given more, what more am I to do?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think Bernie's question, right? Is it the same mood and state? The mood, it is changing. It's ever changing with external circumstances. A state will be the state of your being,
Okay.
right? Like you could be in a constant positive state or in a constant negative state. I mean, there's no constant, but basically, but the mood is, we say mood swings, you know, because it just swings with every thought.
Mm.
So
Yeah. So state has a broader bandwidth.
That's how I look at it, that it's the state is just a bigger definition.
One other thing is, the mood can be the rainbow lights, different light colors, and state is presence or absence of the light.
yeah,
Like light or dark.
Okay, good.
beautiful.
Good.
Mm. Mm.
And then D, the times I have remembered most to invoke presence are when I feel very asleep, D said, when I feel heaviness overwhelming me. And then sleep is a good remembering factor. My question is, how is sleep a good remembering factor? And the next part is funny. G agreed. And best of all are those feelings engendered in your machine by your remorse when you have forgotten
Mm.
to invoke yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I really, oh man, I forgot to invoke myself.
It's the with the sleep I remembered Bhag, uh I don't know, the first thing that happened to me was Bhagwan's question. The first question he asked Osho, that what do I do if I feel like sleeping? And he just said sleep. But I remember that he was in a state to kind of know himself to such an extent that he actually would not sleep the whole night. He would try to stay awake and like really harm himself, like you know uh,
Yeah.
splash water in his eyes, and he would do crazy things to stay awake, just because he heard the term that awaken yourself, so to make yourself awake, and he thought staying up is makes you awake. So but
A lot of people think that, like, a lot of people think that, and then, I mean, I was suffering with this, that I used to feel guilty about sleeping, and I would feel hopeless if I don't sleep enough. So then, I don't know, one has to reach to their own answers, because there are people who do with like 3 hours of sleep, and then they, whatever, 2 hours, and then they lucid dream and they're able to relax themselves. But uh, everybody has their own answers, I think. I don't know.
so then about sleep, Alka, like or anybody, like how it's a good remembering factor, like as David asked. So
In the context of being asleep or awake, not the physical act of sleeping, but what do we mean by sleep?
sleep would be a state where you're not in your state of presence, and then you suddenly realize that I'm not in that state.
Yeah, it's another word for mechanicality is a good remembering factor. Okay. And the mechanicality works uniquely with each person. Each person is very different and very specific, and that's the beauty of this work. Okay.
So again, the thing that when you sleep, you realize the what you're losing by not invoking your presence. It's an opportunity to realize what you're not achieving by invoking the presence.
Well, that puts a value judgment on it.
Yeah.
Before that starts, there's just simply, I'm asleep or I'm awake. So
But
if you can notice that you're in mechanicality, that's the beginning of understanding the distinction.
but you could also be in a state of sleep knowing you're asleep. Like it's only happened to me like twice, but I remember that, you know, when you're aware that you're sleeping, like, you know, you're totally aware of how long you're sleeping with your breath and with everything. So then, like for me, when the sleep is a good remembering factor, it reminded me of that state, because when you're half awake, it makes you're just in a different state, you know. So
Yeah.
Isn't sleep identification? We're not talking about physical sleep.
yeah, but it's just that I recall that because of the top para and that para, it just reminded me of being awake when you're sleeping too. Like it just reminded me of that. Yeah.
Do you mean like you're literally asleep at night and how to be awake then?
Yes, like even when I was sleeping, I was fully aware of my sleep. So, but that was like just 2 nights. But I remember that, you know, that invoking of presence, right, are times when I feel asleep. So,
So
but
that would be the practice of lucid dreaming.
I had actually, I was working on my breath intensely
Mm.
for a very long time. So I remember that in that state, the person that I was doing, like the vipassana, what I was doing, they had specifically said, don't practice it while you're sleeping. But I was so into, you know, aware
Mhm.
myself or whatever, because I felt I wanted to do it. Like if he could do it, I could, you know. But I was intensely doing it for so long that I could actually feel the sleep in me. So I don't know, like the reason I was trying to talk about that was that, you know, when you could be in a state of presence when you're sleeping too. So
Yeah.
mm,
Uh, So sleep is a good reminding factor or remembering factor. And each of us have habits of mechanicality, right?
mm,
Yeah.
So it's discovering those without judgment and then just placing your attention on them. That's the cleansing radiation of attention. And each moment you do that, there's one little bolt of identification is loosened. See what I mean?
mm,
We're identified with this, you know, oh man, you really make a good cup of coffee. And then boom, your ego comes up and you feel all this. And well, so what? Watch it come up. Just remember, I am not that. But
Mm.
the second you can find one of those, you have found a treasure. The problem is that we tend to judge ourselves. But think about this for a minute. Think about how powerful judgment is as a buffering mechanism. You know, oh, I'm really bad because I can never remember myself. Oh, geez, you know, it's just, you're just maintaining the sleep. But what if you're a spy looking for moments of sleep? And you walk in there and you walk into the, you know, to the place and you go, oh, look, when I'm brushing my hair, notice how proud I am of my hair or my beard, right? Continue to be proud of it. It might be a good thing, but that doesn't mean you need to be identified with it.
Should I continue with the
Sure. Yeah, please.
forgetfulness, inattention, identification? These are the keys to self-invocation. They provide the feeling basis for invocation. The self-shame engendered following periods of sleep and inattention can be a very powerful source of force with which to feed your invocations. Use these feelings of failure and frustration now while you can. The day will come when they no longer provide force, and you will be compelled to gather around yourself only those who make your life miserable and uncomfortable, and who can, because they have not yet lost the impulses of machine frustration, produce in themselves, without half thinking about it, vast amounts of negative force.
What do you think about this paragraph?
Scary.
It's like jolting you, shaking you up.
Oy, oy, oy. So what about the part, the day will come when they no longer provide, in other words, you stop judging yourself all the time, right? And you will be compelled to gather around yourself only those who make your life miserable.
So is he talking of his state here? We are
Really?
we are the ones who are the machine frustrations around him.
Yeah, the last date I went on, I think, proves this. But like, for instance, my neighbor, who I speak about all the time, is a glorious human being. But a lot of her behavior really bothers me. Okay. Does that have anything to do with her? Not really, right?
No.
It has to do with my machine and my limitations. So I like hanging out with her. So just find those areas. They happen every single day. And maybe somebody that you see every day, like if you go to work every day, you like everybody except that little jerk that's in the mailroom, or whatever it is, right? And Nikhil really likes working with his at school with all the people he works with, but his roommate is a real jerk, you know. Well, then doesn't he have some work to do there? Yeah. And then you become thankful for that person.
Yeah,
There's a
you do.
thankfulness that, and you have a certain form of compassion that comes up, that you begin to see how they are locked into that. This works later on when you're extremely advanced. You can apply this to your parents. you know.
Even respect for that matter, not just this, but a lot of respect, and you actually start looking like you actually start appreciating those people in your life. Like, and I'm
Sure.
not talking just about parents here. I'm talking about a lot of other people in your life who come in, and you're like, why are they even necessary on this planet? You know?
Yeah. Really.
Mhm.
Yeah, but then you start learning from them, and you start seeing that there's so much that you get to explore and expand by expanding your vision, by accommodating their vision, that it only enriches you as a person.
And isn't that the beginning of the and foundation of true compassion?
Mm.
Where
Yeah, David.
we stand on a ground of objectivity, and you see your mother caught in her mechanicality, or in my case, or even more so, I see my father, instead of feeling dominated by him, I start to notice him caught in his own mechanicality. And then you don't judge the person, you embrace them.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
But again, those are like moments, and then again you're frustrated, and again, there's a state of compassion. So it's like,
Yeah.
mm,
Well, you have to begin a little bit with compassion for yourself.
that
Compassion. Go
that
ahead, Bhavani.
no, that's exactly what I wanted to add. That the compassion for others doesn't come until you start having compassion and compassion for yourself. I realized that until you learn to be okay with who you are, then you start seeing the okayness of others being themselves. So
Yeah.
it happens first when you're okay with yourself, basically, or non-judgmental with yourself.
Yeah,
So
let's say that you see yourself every time someone does this, you always judge them, either vocally or subvocally, okay?
mm,
And you go, "Oh man, what a jerk I am." And you judge yourself over and over again for a few years, and then you go, "Oh, look, notice how that happens in me." And there's 1 inch of non-identification.
mm,
Our goal is not to change the negative state, but our relationship to it. Then the negative state gradually loses its power.
yeah.
We give it its power by identifying with it.
And that's what I noticed, that when you just keep observing yourself, whatever the negative aspect that you considered negative, like it slowly starts withering away by itself. Like, it's not an effort, but it's just, then it does not affect you anymore. So I think that's really important, to just accept yourself the way you are, like without judging, and then slowly it will not affect you anymore. So yeah.
Mm. But does the identification stop with those people the minute they come in your life and they expand your lens? You still identify, like I'm still identified with them.
Yeah, you're identified, but it does not affect you. So you notice you're identified, but so what? You know, I mean, say you're a mother and you have a child and you're identified being a mother, but so what? And then when the so what happens, then slowly you just see the compassion of the motherly instinct which pops up, and then you notice it, but then the attachment of being a mother is not as important as just noticing the motherly affection that pops up with every time a child comes. And then you notice that you could switch it on and off, not just with your children, but you could do it with others too, with other children, and then you start testing that emotion.
Nice.
So so the identification is still there, but you're not messing with it, like, let that mechanicality take its own place, whatever it is doing. But the point is, what, for example, like the compassion that I'm talking of, I never knew what compassion was until I had a child. So that
Mm.
giving factor, the motherly, that you say, that ma, that motherly feeling, I did not understand that. And it's developing more and more with when you're still attached to your child, because you're attached, you're identified with the child. So then it's still growing. And then you notice that that identification is in a way necessary, because it's making you see that entire scope of the emotion is popping. It's like extracting emotion out of you which you did not know existed, and that is
Also,
important.
existing transformation out of you, which you did not know you had a scope for. Like a lot of times, I realized that what a jerk I've been, in my after interaction and after seeing, and it's not again not just with parents, but other people as well. You see the possibilities of transformation that lie within you, which are necessary to make you what you are supposed to be made.
But if you also notice that we're all going to be jerks at a certain time, like, we're in a growing state. We were teenagers, we've been rude, we've been this, we've been that, like, you've been really, like, I've been mean to my parents, growing up, like, I've seen that. But again, like, so be it. I was growing. And then the only thing that matters now is that, yeah, you were that. If we can accept that, being,
Mm.
being the jerk, like, like, yeah, so
Yeah.
I was that. I was immature. Let it be. Like, be compassionate to yourself that you were
Yeah.
growing. I mean, I remember, so this one sentence which really affects me the most is, what is that book of Zorba, the Greek Buddha?
Mm.
In that, I remember that Zorbas, and I realized, so just a couple of years ago, I'd read the book, but it never affected me that much. When he said that he was laughing about the fact that, oh, you talk about not biting, you talk about biting when you have no teeth, talk about, and then he laughed about it. I think it was something like that you talk about
Mm.
have no teeth or something. And then he laughed about the fact how he used to like throw some things to his old grandma or something. So the thing is that when you have no teeth and then you say, oh yeah, you shouldn't bite, but when you have all the teeth and then you have the intensity to not bite, that state, if you could differentiate. So it's like, oh, when you had teeth, you were biting and you were all vicious, basically. And now you're talking about, oh, not being vicious, when you have no teeth, like when you're so old, like all the teeth have fallen out and now you're talking about it, so
Mhm.
that state, right? That just accept like how you were before, so then that'll not which it should not, like, it'll not
No, it doesn't bother. No, no, it doesn't bother. In fact, it just opens it just opens horizons and you look at it as learning that has come.
Right.
with humility and
Because,
acceptance.
yeah, because there are lots of such moments in our ordinary life. Like David mentioned, right? That we keep telling ourselves that, oh, I was like this and I was like that. And then you keep judging, right? And it
Yeah.
still happens. Like, there are these moments where you keep feeling, oh, I did this, oh, I did that, and it keeps repeating.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we could be in a state, that so be it, I mean, that it you could get to it, but you're still not there, but it keeps repeating and you let that happen, the mechanicality, right? The beauty of it. Mhm.
Something like this happened now. We are on clouds, so I would not say it, but yeah, something so beautiful happened. And I was like, I was actually out of my grudge for someone, I was crashing something that was so beautiful. Like, as an idea, there was an idea that was so beautiful. And just because I had a grudge towards this particular person, I was
Mhm.
trashing all the ideas that came from that person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I realized today that, oh my God, and that idea got favored by somebody else. And I just took a pause and I was like, it was such a beautiful idea. Why was I wanting to trash it? Because, I don't like that person.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and that's a beautiful opportunity for observing yourself and just noticing the mechanicality, but not judging yourself about judging that person,
Yeah.
right? Very hard to do. It's a very delicate moment.
yeah. And all of a sudden that idea is growing to be so much more beautiful in my eyes. And I'm just getting deeper and deeper into appreciating it. Uh, the
Mm.
beauty of that idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, this is a very critical chapter in this book and in our work. So I'm glad that we spent a lot of time on just these few paragraphs today. So let's mark where we ended, Nikhil. Where did we end? Sleep is a good remembering factor. Right. Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, this is good. There's more examples coming in front of us. So let's see how we do. Great. Anything else, Nikhil? See you, Bernie. Take care, buddy.
Thanks. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Zorba the Greek. Okay.
Zorba. Beautiful.